Character designs are cool. It's probably without a doubt one of my favorite things about anime, manga, games, and just anything with a design for that matter. There's just so much design into character, and the fact that a single person's drawing can have such an impact on millions makes it all the more impressive. I want you to try and gather 4 characters. 4 characters that represent you and what you like. Try not to limit yourself, but just a few characters that come to mind when you think of some of your favorites in terms of design. For me, I'd have to go with these 4. Now, try and tell me what they all have in common. I'll give you a second. If you couldn't think of anything, then chances are you're just like me. And there's no ulterior motive behind any reason, I just like them because again, I think character designs are cool, and it should be kept that way. I think for most people, we think of our favorite designs, there usually isn't just one. There's usually a roadblock in your head trying to browse through the years of media you consumed to find and pick one that sticks out to you. But it's more than likely that's not possible, and you get stuck between the history of outstanding and breathtaking designs. From not just anime, but from everything. Everything has a design, and there's always something unique to look forward to in each and every one. Because at the end of the day, even if you try and replicate a character one for one, it's more than likely that that character design is going to come out different. So there's always going to be a separate factor that splits the two. And if I haven't already said it enough, that to me is just so cool. And the creativity that goes into creating a character with its process and outlook has to be one of the most fun ways to express yourself and what you find interesting in a series. Let's use My Hero Academia for example. The mangaka Kohei Horikoshi is a fanatic for all things superhero related. It doesn't matter if it's Marvel, DC, or anything in between, he's a fan of it. And throughout the years, he struggled to make a name for himself in the manga industry, in which he pursued until My Hero Academia came along. You see where I'm going with this? This is what I see as a perfect reflection of someone's interest in something else and forging it into a piece of art that they can create for themselves. He then took his knowledge from over the years of superheroes, Star Wars, and of course anime and manga, and creating what we know today as My Hero Academia. All the more, character designs are what I like to think of as the heart and soul of your interest. So with everything that comes within a character, that's what I'm here to discuss. So make sure to subscribe to the channel as we are reaching 30K, leave a like on the video, comment, and hit the bell for more, and let's get into the foreseeable world of character designs. First things first, when creating a character, obviously you're going to have your concepts. Not every masterpiece is going to be on your first try. So of course you're going to have your good ideas and your bad ones. I did a video like this back when the channel was still really young, but I wanted to touch on some things I talked about. When designing a character, there are certain aspects that you keep and transfer over when starting to then finalizing a character design. Most of the time, these concept artists have a vision for what they initially want, and therefore you essentially always get a taste of that rough draft even when the character is all said and done. It's kind of funny coming from someone who can't even pick up a pen and draw even a stick figure for that matter, but a vision is something I think anyone with creativity has to offer, and that may or may not be because of inspiration. Concepting a character is probably one of the most fun things to do. Not that I would know too much about it, but from what I know of taking what you like and applying it into a character you're trying to forge is always going to play a factor, and it just all revolves around whether or not you decide to be more innovative in your own originality. Now, not every character looks the same, and that isn't just a good thing, but a great thing. When it comes to the proportions of some characters, it's not just for a good amount of diversity, but in a way, it could be looked at as a way of defining someone's character as how they are perceived from first glance. Like we as people judge others based on initial reaction, obviously. When getting to know someone, that changes, but when designing a character, I think that's also a good way to, at least for the most part, create a character for the personality and traits you want them to have, but just from one drawing. Take this for example. In One Piece, there is a plethora of characters that have proportions big and small, and outside of One Piece's world building, its characters stand tall in terms of its diversity. So, when looking at a character like Luffy, we can see that it's almost always we see him smiling, being the fun and charismatic character that he is. And when we look at a character such as Blackbeard, being that polar opposite of Luffy, before even taking a second to know these characters, you can just get that proportionate personality from first glance. And given that's what goes into designing a character merely based on personality and expression. Another one of my favorite things about designing a character, and probably my favorite thing just in general these days, is fashion. I love fashion. And for characters that know how to dress, or better yet, designers who know how to dress characters based on the style they're going for, makes that character just a whole lot better. Like, come on. Who doesn't just like a dripped out character? And in anime and manga, that's of course just a huge phenomenon in that sphere. Manga artists are pretty much always on it when it comes to fashion, and the style sense in Japan is really just like no other. Bleach, of course, is the biggest example because the man Tite Kubo himself just honestly doesn't know when to not make any of his characters not only just diverse and different every single time, but when looking at his sense of style, it really just fails to fall under any other series except for maybe a few. The notable ones, of course, would have to be under some of my favorite color spreads, because within color spreads, this is where most of the time you get to see the creative freedom that outside of the story's main journey take place. And it's really just for fun for the mangaka to show off a bit. I think Soider is also another contender for fashion in designs, giving off that early 2000s style of hip hop culture, not to mention Nana, giving off that natural punk look with at its time its modern sense of glow. And again, it's really just the fact that these artists get to shine in some areas that sometimes may or may not be able to in the main running line of the story. And I think that just makes an aspect about character designs just a whole lot more interesting. But when you look through the catalog of media, designs, and fashion, they're all just something that sticks out like a sore thumb. So it really just boils down to the theme of your series and the approach you're trying to reach with the character. Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba is most notably known for its flashy appearance and marketability, and its characters are what people tend to look for. These characters all have a common theme of color, more specifically a color coding, and I think as for a series where its manga didn't, well, do completely terrible, it was still mediocre in the magazine at the time prior to the release of the first season of the anime. So if I were to guess, this is where I think as a designer, you kind of have this conceptual vision of just how to make this work when transferring it over from a manga to an anime. This is why I think whoever decided to shoot their shot on a manga that wasn't the biggest at the time, Ufotable definitely knew what route to take for its marketability because of its character designs, and of course combined with their studio's flair, it just serves for the perfect combination that became one of, if not the most popular anime of all time in this generation. As for a character that's either more simplified rather than its more naturalistic look, it really all just revolves around the preference, and depending on which door you decide to go through, it opens up an entirely new horizon for both sides. For a simplistic design to work, I think we have to look at some of the best, and where better yet to start than with Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man. These two series are most notable for its scratchy feeling yet simplistic art style that we get in both the anime and manga. Both these series work fluently around its scratchy and sometimes messy art style, and I think because of that, it's what makes its simplicity stand out. One way Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man do this is by dressing their main characters similarly, giving the audience a sense of camaraderie among the cast. On the other hand, the antagonists of the series tend to have a more in-depth design, but are very different from the main cast, making them stand out. And on the other hand, a more naturalistic style is often used in series targeting the older demographic, such as Berserk, Vagabond, and Vinland Saga, and many, many more. This style is often used to convey emotion and make it easier for the audience to understand the character's feelings through body language and posture. Both styles have their own strengths and weaknesses, and it ultimately comes down to the creator's preference and the type of series they are trying to portray. With everything taken into account though, characters need flair, and they need it to stand out. Like I mentioned earlier, inspiration is cool, but what happens when a character looks too similar to another? Well, at least in the anime and manga community, pretty much nothing, because I've seen it a dozen times and nothing really happens. But as for other sources of media, it's a pretty big dilemma, and can really kill a whole character just merely based on the inspiration of a design. So adding anything miscellaneous for that matter can just add that touch of flair to your character. It's really the small things that count for me, and as if you are an artist and are designing these characters with the intent of innovating your series, that to me just not only piques my interest more, but I feel like a majority of the community is looking for something refreshing, so it works out both ways. And when I say miscellaneous, I'm referring to elements you can add to a character to make them stand out. Some examples may include like Square Enix games like Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts, which are pretty much known for their creative freedom and unique elements. More stuff like Into the Spider-Verse and just the abundance of Spider-Man in general have a keen look to them when always adding something to spice things up. Even Pokemon, when it comes to its characters, have always a sense of switching things up, and I mean, depending on the generation, it could be for better or worse, but it is what it is. And for a series I think gets little to no recognition for this is Radiant. Radiant has probably some of the most intriguing and unique designs that all the more add that unique flavor, giving off a hint of inspiration that you can be like, oh, that looks like that from whatever inspiration from blank series. But just off the little things and giving the rest of the character its own original design, kind of like an 80% to maybe I'd say 20% ratio of originality and inspiration. That to me is like the perfect blend of both worlds. At the end of the day though, character designs don't have to be complicated, they just have to be cool. It's all about taking inspiration from other works and adding your own unique touch. It's not about analyzing the designs, it's about enjoying them. And for those who are artists, feel free to send me your own designs of my character because that'd be pretty cool. You know, Twitter, Discord, hit me up in the DMs, it doesn't really matter. But in all seriousness, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you want more, just wait for them to come out because they will sooner or later. But thank you all again for watching, and don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. But this has been Augie, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.